Okay. With that, we might be ready to go. Oh no, now it's time to see if I got my hotkeys right. I'm so glad. There's a lot less stress doing this live because the emphasis on the edited audio product is kind of more important to me. So it's a little less stressful doing it live than it could be. Oh, I got it right. Although I look a little off. So I'm just going to move this and then we'll do it again. Okay. Hey guys. Gotta get my script right here. In my 5 years as a content creator, I've worked on and put out various kinds of video content, but never once have I strayed from the improvisational style of live streams, podcasts, and D&D content. In fact, the closest I've come to written content is intros like this one right now. The Stormchasers... Oh, I already messed it up. Don't worry, I'll fix it in post. Today, I want to get a look into the world of more traditional content direction to learn about the writing and direction for projects like the Stormchasers Podcast, worked on by Dallas McKenzie, who was here just a couple of episodes ago. Today, I'm joined by Michael Shannon, the mastermind behind the project, to teach me all about the work he does as a writer and a director. So settle down, get comfy, and let's learn some things. Hello?
Hello, we in this? We doing it?
I believe we're doing it.
All right.
Except you're frozen because I don't have Discord open. Okay, that's the first time, by the way. I just want to be clear. That's the first time I messed up an intro. How's it going, man? Welcome to the show.
Thank you for having me. I want to really quickly apologize to everyone in the audience who saw that you were interviewing Michael Shannon about writing and directing and thought, he got the actor from like Shape of Water and Knives Out and whoa, it's talk about writing and directing. Oh, so cool. And then they just see me.
Listen, acting has got nothing on writing and directing. Okay, this is we're in the real shit now. We're in the mud of the behind the camera work, I guess. But for anyone who doesn't know, a couple episodes ago, I interviewed Dallas McKenzie, who is a voice actress and works with Michael Shannon on the Stormchasers podcast. So if you haven't checked it out, please go check out Stormchasers Podcast at Stormchasers Pod on Twitter. But yeah, so this is the man behind it all, who we actually talked about a little bit already on Dallas's episode. But I figured it would be a great idea to have you on and talk about sort of what you do, what you sort of, your side of putting that project together, getting everyone sort of, casting and getting the right people for it. The first question I want to ask, just right off the bat, is who's your favorite member of the cast?
No. Okay, well, so I know that Dallas is in the chat right now. I don't know anyone else. So Dallas, obviously, for sure. Obviously.
Oh, of course. No, but
actually, you know what? I actually play a very bit role in episode 2 as the attendant in the very opening. So I'm actually just gonna say me.
You're your own favorite member. That kind of checks out because as I was putting together the intro for this, I want you guys to know that as I was putting together the intro, I sent it to him, to Michael, just like, yeah, this is going to be the intro, just, if there's any issues with it. And he was like, well, you should probably actually say the very talented, handsome, heaven-sent Michael Shannon. So that checks out that you would be your own favorite member of the show.
Well, I just wanted to make sure that the intro is accurate.
Yeah, right. It's... Yeah. I think I might have cut that. Some of that might be on the cutting room floor right now, but
we'll come back to it. We'll come back.
Yeah, it'll make it in post. I genuinely messed up the intro, and we'll fix it in post. But I'm not. We'll see about that little addition. Yeah. So we've never met before. This is basically our first time having a proper conversation, other than like literally 30 minutes ago. So, I mean, it's good to meet you. It's good to hang out.
Yeah, you as well. Absolutely.
Yeah. So, I'm Duke. I'm 25.
And Michael, 29.
Oh yeah. The last episode was so funny. So I had my friend Ollie on, and he literally started out with, "I'm Ollie. I'm an Aquarius," and I just wanted to end the episode right there, frankly. But yeah. So, I guess just to start off, if since I know literally nothing about you, if you want to talk about your background, what
Right.
you do, who you are.
Yeah, sure. So, Michael Shannon, 29, Gemini. Uh, I
God's sake.
am. I'm from Louisville, Kentucky, and I don't have an accent. Sorry to all those who assume that all Kentuckians have one. I am a Western Kentucky University graduate. I went to their film program when it was still very new. Uh, so I kind of was sent through the gauntlet before they knew exactly what they were what they were doing.
Nice.
But I've been interested in film for, I mean, basically ever. I mean, we have home movies of me when I was like 5 years old making a like a James Bond movie with my sisters and cousins.
Nice.
And it's very good. It's very good. I'll have to post it one day. And it was it's been kind of forever a hobby at least of mine. And then in high school, I joined. We had like a news broadcast, like a live news broadcast they do every day, like a video one. And I joined up on that and kind of rose through the ranks and kind of learned, oh, I really like, presenting. I like editing. I like filming, and like for real. And that kind of spiraled into making movies and then writing and then you know jump starting that into college. And then afterwards, I am so right now I am a freelance videographer. So I do wedding videos and company ads, things like that, to pay the bills. But really my passion lies in storytelling and creation. Uh, and so that has kind of led me to here. For a long time, I just did live action video work.
Yeah.
Uh, but then when the pandemic hit, it became pretty much impossible to get a crew together. We couldn't get, especially in the beginning, we couldn't get 10 people in a room
Yeah.
to film for 5 hours, uh, and so that took a big backseat. And uh, it really, the whole thing kind of came about where I got into, not a lot of shows were being released at the time for the same reason, and I got into audio dramas. I kind of learned about them, like, oh, these exist, and got really into them, and kind of realized, oh, this is something that I could do. I could kind of channel this creative energy I have into this outlet, and it's not gonna, it's not gonna kill anyone,
Yeah. Right.
which is always something you're concerned about when making a movie. And then kind of the rest is history.
So, first thing you touched on was a James Bond home video that you put together. The one thing that I'm curious about is, did you do the iconic intro with the whole like turn to the camera and like shooting and all this stuff? You know what I'm talking about?
I do, and I don't think we did. I think it started out with a cold open like they usually do, and then we had, so again, I was 5, and I think the oldest person in the cast and crew was my oldest sister, who was probably 11 at the time. And I think we didn't we were just filming on like a DV, like little mini VHS
Yeah.
thing, and I think we just had pieces of paper that was like uh, James Bond in, and then we just and then
Right.
we just that was our intro. It was really professional. I think now Adele did do our intro song though, so
Okay.
that was nice.
Who would
Yeah.
have also been probably 5 or 6 at the time. So
Yeah, we really discovered her really early.
that checks out. Yeah. I just now see when you put it that way, I picture like Michael Scan level of
Yes.
yeah. I mean I feel like a lot of people sort of who uh I need to stop talking about Rent and Link on this show, but seriously, I watched them so much. But they started out making like stupid home videos and stuff, and with a camcorder they got as a gift and things like that. I feel like
Yeah.
that is the start for a lot of people. I don't know.
Yeah.
Do you have any nostalgia for like working with tape? Did you ever do any editing or anything like that with tape? I mean,
So,
you were 5 when you were making home videos, so I'm not like, picturing
right.
a bunch of 5-year-olds around in the cutting room like
Cutting
editing.
film and
Yeah. But was there any point like sort of as you were growing up that you got a chance to work with that kind of stuff? Because I always feel like that's such a cool ritual as someone who works in audio, it's been a very similar kind of evolution where we've gone from like literal magnetic tape to digital.
sure.
So I think I kind of missed out on that era of working with tape and stuff. Not that it's easier than than working digitally, but it always seemed like such a cool
it's
physical medium. Yeah, exactly. So, did you get to work with tape at any point, working in video?
So sort of, not growing up for sure, but when
Yeah.
I got into college, I had an editing course, and actually I see someone in the chat, a friend of mine, Ariel, she was in that same class. She says, "Oh my God, war flashbacks." Yeah, it's we went from the normal nonlinear digital work to working through tape, and now it wasn't film, but going through the tape, and it was way harder. Like I said, it
Yes.
is
Yeah.
it's not quite how I can't think that way, even though I guess just because I grew up, or rather my first editing softwares were nonlinear.
Mm-hmm.
It's so hard for me to think in terms of that, um, of doing it through tape. And I'm glad that I did it because it's a cool thing to say that I did. And I
Yeah.
like that I know that it's almost like I'm a part of this weird bit of film history, I guess, that no one does anymore, in my own small way. But that's not my norm. Growing up, I guess you could say I worked with tape, and that growing up, I would just have, even as a younger teenager, as like a 13 or 12-year-old, when I would be filming on the just normal camcorder, and if a take was bad, I would just rewind the tape, and
And
then
then
film over
record
it.
back over
So
it. Yeah.
in a way, I did, yeah,
Yeah.
but not officially.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know why that was where my brain went there, but I was just like,
no, it's a cool question. I like it.
yeah, like because that seems like such a fascinating and like very like hands-on method. Working with digital makes more sense. It's a lot easier. You can make as many mistakes as you like, but that kind of makes that whole process of working with tape very interesting. It is cool, and I guess, like you said, it's cool to sort of have that little part of filmmaking history that you will never ever use again. But
Right.
you got the opportunity to do it. Yeah, it just makes you wonder, like, what really was the point of that class? Because I mean, you must have. Yeah, you said you're in college or university, like, kind of been 10 years ago, maybe. Like everything was digital still at that point, right? Like.
Oh my God, 10 years ago. Yeah. So the class was for a digital nonlinear class, but it was like a segment. It was, I don't know, a 2 or 3 week stint of doing tape. The professor asked us he was like, "This is something you'll never use. It's not practical knowledge. This is going to be effectively pointless, but
oh, that's
you
fair.
all want to do it."
Yeah, that's fair.
And we were like, "Yeah, okay." And so we agreed to do it, and that's what.
Did you shoot the stuff that you edited, or were you just kind of given reels that you were gonna just kind of hack at?
We were just given reels to go for.
Yeah. Someone mentioned the bunny edit, so I assume that's what you were working on.
Yes.
What was the video?
God, it was so long ago. I do remember the name, the bunny edit, and I remember like something about. God, I don't even remember. Ariel, if you can remember it, and Steven says porn. Although everyone who I ever talk to, and when I say I'm a filmmaker, they're like, "Oh, have you ever thought about doing porn?"
Have you ever thought about doing porn? Hold on.
I mean, that's where the money is, but
really?
No. If you are an amateur filmmaker who's not in like Hollywood and working on actual movies, I mean, like I guess I could do that, and then I could just sell it or make some kind of, I don't know, premium Pornhub account and get.
Right.
I guess I could do something like that, but yeah, it's that. So that's, I guess, where money is in regards to if I was gonna make a short film, or let's say like a pseudo animated audio drama that I'm putting on for free and on Patreon, I will make no money doing that. But
yeah, that's where the money is. Let's go out to LA, get a freaking what is it, like Airbnb in some weird millionaire's house, and just freaking shoot some porn, dude. That's where the money's at.
Yeah, that's the dream, baby. That's the dream.
Do you actually? Just a completely random thought, but like, is there anyone out there that's like come up with shooting porn and now they're out there in Hollywood that you know of?
I mean, none that I know. But like,
I guess they'd all use pseudonyms. Let's be real.
Right, yeah, right. Although that's I'm sure that's happened. I'm like positive that has happened.
I was just thinking about pseudonyms. The freaking guy on that. What's the criminal investigation show? that's like
Like
SV Law and
CSI
Order.
or
Law and
Order.
Order. You know, Law and Order is like there's like a producer on Law and Order called Dick Wolf. Now, if
Yeah,
that's not a
that
pseudonym, I'm jealous, to be honest.
I know. What a great name that I really hope is
Yeah. So okay,
real.
so from drug unicorns and girl hallucinating is what we have on the
Yeah,
edited film, by the way.
that's starting to
Yeah.
jog my memory. Yeah.
So from cutting up strange drug hallucination edits to, I guess, yeah, like you said, primarily working non-linear with digital. What's kind of, do you have any sort of standout moments from that time in college, things that you shot, projects you worked on that you thought were like really outstanding?
Absolutely. So one of the first ones I did, they had they called it a 49-hour film festival because it happened whenever the time change happened. But it was basically a 2-day film fest, and we got the same kind of concept as normal, where they give you a character, they give you a setting, a genre, prop, blah blah blah, and then we have 2 days to make it. And we set out. I was the writer, and I was like writer and I guess kind of produce. Everyone's kind of a producer on a shoot like that because it's so fast. But
Yeah.
I was kind of the head writer for it, and we made this like cool, I guess, exploration into uh, like grief. The whole thing was like post-apocalyptic world, which that was huge back then.
Still is, to be honest, especially in
And
games.
yeah, definitely still is. But
Yeah.
like, it was everyone was doing it in like 2013 or whenever that was. And it was just like a woman walking through like deserted areas. We found like a deserted house that was like falling apart, and that was like a dream come true. And it was her listening to a voicemail from like her late, insert partner here, right? Husband, boyfriend, whatever.
Right.
Which was the line, whatever we had to use, that was the line. And it was the only line of dialogue. And so it was just her going through the old bits of life and then flashing back to what it looked like when it was not a destroyed wasteland, as she kept on listening to that voicemail over and over and over,
Mm-hmm.
with the idea being that like she's just kind of, and like at the end it like reverts back. We see her back at the very first scene. So the idea that she's just reliving the exact same cycle over and over.
Right.
Every day she does the same thing, with the idea being that like she's gone through all the stages except for acceptance. Like she's still kind of in, I guess, what is it? It's DABDA, denial, anger, bargaining, depression. So she's in depression and just can't quite make that next step to acceptance, and she just cycles. I really liked that one. We got like audience choice and something else from it.
Oh, hell yeah.
Not to brag or anything. I did this one that was that I wrote and directed. It's called So You're in a Fight Club. It was like a series I was going to start. I wrote a bunch of scripts for it, never really made a whole lot with them. Where it was the Anything Help hotline, where you could call this hotline and you would get help no matter what situation you're in.
Okay.
And so this one started with this guy calls and he's like, "Yeah, I'm pretty sure I'm in a fight club." He's like, "Okay, how'd you get here?" "I don't know. I just kind of went down to this basement. Now people are circling me, and so we just kept on cutting back and forth where this guy's in a fight club trying to find out how to get out, and the hotline guy is giving him horrible advice. So we just see him getting like the crap kicked out of him throughout the whole thing as he's just doing his best to get out of it. And so like that one I liked a lot. I thought it had some good jokes in it, and that was
that
one
sounds that sounds like a really good skit, to be honest. Yeah.
Thank you. Yeah. Like that one like won some award. I don't even remember what it was. I think it was like best comedy in something.
Yeah, because like you said, you wrote a bunch of scripts, and even now, like after you've mentioned it, I'm just picturing like, a guy his house is on fire or something, and he's calling the hotline and getting horrible advice, or like, exactly yeah.
There was one that was like he's like stuck. Like a guy was like stuck in a haunted graveyard. Like I had like a bunch of them. Like I think My Girlfriend's a Vampire was one that I still really actually do like. I had a lot of little dumb bits that maybe they would have worked, maybe not, but I thought would be good for it.
I mean, I was gonna say when the pandemic's over, is it ever gonna end? Does it really go? It would be cool to see some of those kind of brought back, I guess.
I might, now that I've got more resources too, and now that I'm not like a 19-year-old. Now that I actually can do something, it could be kind of fun.
Oh, you never know though. You dig up an old script like that and you reread it, and it's probably, I don't know, see if it holds up. I
really
guess.
Bad, yeah.
Yeah, right.
Yeah, no, I still saved like all of my. Every time I wrote a script, I would save it somewhere. I'm sure I've got them all somewhere. And have they held up? Probably not, but I don't know, maybe.
I mean,
And
conceptually
maybe
though,
enough that I could.
conceptually it's
Right.
still a good idea, right? Even if the fine details might need a little bit of rejuvenation, like
Yeah,
that does sound like a fun
do the
concept. And
rewrites.
yeah, same with
Yeah, thank you.
um the grief film that you're talking about. Also, like that is a very sort of interesting concept for a short film as well.
Thank you.
So I odd question because
Yeah.
so you mentioned basically everyone in that scenario was a producer, but like what is the role of a producer? Because I feel I've heard in some cases you can essentially get an executive producer credit just by putting money into a project. So like
Yes.
what does
So
that actually mean?
the producer can be and does a lot of things. And you'll see on most movies, there's like a ton of them. Right? They'll
Yes.
be like, 5 producers and 2 executive producers, and then one executive producer that gets his own credit by himself. So he's like the executive producer. So like it's really like you could kind of be doing anything, but the producers are the ones who literally own the movie. Like if you were accepting an award for best picture, the producer gets the award,
Right.
not the director, not the writer, not the actors. And so what the producer typically will do or can do is, yes, it could just be they're given a whole bunch of money. Like they just give them a bunch of money to fund it. They say, I like this project. I have faith in it. Here's $100 million. Make it, please, and put my name on it.
Mm.
And then they could just back off and then they're gone.
Yeah.
But if, in my opinion, a good producer, which for Stormchasers, we have a great producer. He's a buddy of mine. Uh, a good producer will like uh, kind of help to keep everything on the right track. Something that writers and directors often will do is go off on weird tangents, or will get hyper fixated on something and just not be able to let it go. Or, if we are, you know, like if I've got like a scene that I really want to work, or even just like a joke, something small, like a joke that I'm trying to fit in somewhere, and let's say I send it to, or I'm talking to our producer. His name's Alex Goebel. If I'm like, yeah, like I've got the script for you to look at. I really want to get this joke to work. And I'm like, can I have one more day? He's like, yeah, sure, take another day. And then he comes back, yeah, I'm really trying to make this thing happen. Can I one more day, please? Yeah, okay, fine, one more day. And then I do it again. And he's like, okay, enough. If you can't figure it out in the next 10 minutes, it's cut. You have to move on.
Yeah.
You just
right.
have to move on. And I do, and I stop wasting my time, right? It's been now 4 days and I'm just on the same line. Quit wasting time. They can help keep everything kind of moving along and that we're not getting stuck. Sometimes the producer can just be like the person that gives them, that is maybe holding the rights to the story, and they just say, yeah, you can do it, but make me a producer, and then
Right.
you're on there.
Yeah.
The producer really can do like a lot of things, but in my opinion, the best producers are the ones that they can like provide some monetary value, but mainly that they help temper the creative nonsense that the creatives can give. Because since they're on the business side, since they have a financial risk, they don't want you to waste time, and they don't, because that means money. They don't want you to do something that's really super out there that audiences will absolutely hate, but you think it's cool because you're an artsy douchebag.
Right.
Like, they kind of help make sure that you just kind of get reined in.
Yeah, especially if they are sort of, if they bring monetary value, if they are contributing in that way, it's their money at the end of the day. That's kind of,
Exactly.
when you're spending 4 or 5 days on a joke, it's kind of in their best interest to keep things moving as well, because I guess that's money kind of ticking away. Yes. For every hour spent stuck on kind of fitting one joke in, right, or one line in.
Or if it's during production, if you're actually shooting, let's say that a shoot has 20 actors, 15 crew, like people for the crew, maybe let's say 10 more extras, and then you got to feed all of them. And so you take a whole day on something that is just not working. That's a full day of I mean, I lost count of how many I said, but that could be like 40 people's like daily wages. And like you're like, that was one day you didn't even do anything, and that bit sucks. Like, no, stop this nonsense, get moving.
Right. Yeah.
And that can be really annoying for the production side and the creatives, but it is actually very important.
As I mean, I don't want to go through every single role on a film set, but I mean, I'm dead curious.
Yeah.
As a director, right? Like, what is your role as a director in that case? If the producer kind of has maybe not necessarily final say, but if the producers kind of controls sort of the flow of things, what is the director's main job on set a lot of the time?
And that's a good question because a lot of people think that they know it. That's like, oh, the director's the boss. The director is
Yeah,
just like the one in control of everything. But that's not exactly true. Like the director is high up, right? The director is one of the top level. They call it an above the line position. They're above the line for sure.
right.
But the director does exactly what it says on the tin, right? They direct. They are there to be the directors for the actors. Um, so they come in. They don't worry about. I mean, some do, but like they don't really worry too much about the shot because they have a director of photography who does that.
Right.
They have cameramen. They have whole like sections of people who are only devoted to the shot. If I'm the director, I don't really have time to deal with that because it's going to take me forever, and I'm here to make sure that the actors are getting the most out of their material and that
Yeah.
they know where to go, what to do, and how to say things. So typically that's the director's job. Now, you get people like Christopher Nolan, and he is a very camera focused director. Like I don't personally love his writing, but his directing and his camera work are incredible. And so like he will have a lot of say in that. Tarantino typically will have a lot of say in the they'll have a lot of say in how things look, how things feel,
Yeah.
And certainly all of the above the line positions. So producers, writer, director, director of photography, and editor will all have will kind of all be on a team. And it's not like the director has no idea what's going on the shot side of things. Just everyone's communicating, but I'm gonna let them deal with the basics,
Yeah.
or deal with the minutia of the camera work.
The one complaint I think that I hear a lot about Christopher Nolan movies, and I don't know if this is a creative decision of his, is the audio mixing.
Yeah, it sucks.
You can't hear a
It's
fucking
so
word.
bad.
Yeah, like.
It's so bad. In what was his Tenet? Was that his latest one? Like
Mm-hmm.
that one, it was like so much of it was impossible to hear. Interstellar, a movie I hate, is like that too in a lot of scenes where the dialogue is muddy or the soundtrack is so loud and the dialogue is really quiet or the sound effects. It's so frustrating because what I'm seeing is wonderful. And Stephen, so Too Good Woo is our artist, Stephen Woo, and I've known him for a long time. He's heard me get into it. It's so frustrating because you can look at something and be like, that's so beautiful. And even when his writing is good, it's like you love to hear what it says, but bad audio, I can deal with bad video work. I can deal with bad quality. I can't deal with bad audio. If it sounds bad, I mean, I just can't do it. I want to leave. I can't deal with that. Like the sonic aspect of it
Yeah, and especially
is so much.
when you're watching in a cinema or a movie theater,
Mm-hmm.
and the audio is so intense, like it's so loud,
Yeah.
and you people wrote a script for this movie for a reason, like you want to hear
Right.
what people are saying. But yeah, that's the one big complaint I've heard about Christopher Nolan. I don't think I've seen a Christopher Nolan movie since The Dark Knight, and I think, yeah, and I think I'm okay with that, to be honest.
Yeah,
I'm
you're
not a
actually
big,
not missing. I had that big
yeah,
reaction, but really, you're not missing much.
I'm not a big like, oh this well, I'm not a big movie guy generally. Like, I think it's funny because I have two older brothers who are those kinds of people that are like, they'll reference or quote something and I won't get it, and then they'll be like, "What? You haven't seen blank?" And
Yeah.
I haven't seen The Godfather. I haven't seen. I know, right? I know. I worked on it.
Oh my god.
I worked on it for a little bit. There was a time where I was like, okay, I'm gonna try watch some really good movies, like movies that people always talk about, and I watched like
Yeah.
Taxi Driver and
I just saw that movie for the first time last week.
what did you think of it?
Where do you say that? I liked it, but I didn't love it as much as everyone else seems to, or as much as I thought I was going to. I love noir movies, and that's like a neo noir.
Yeah,
Uh, Yeah, I don't know. It was a little too meandery for me. It felt like we just kind of weren't doing anything at any point, but there's a
Yeah,
charm to it though that
I
I
get that. I think so I watched it with a few people recently because it's a movie that I remember like when I watched it for the first time. You say it's meandery, but there's something about its style to me that made it feel more kind of immersive in that way because it's kind of meandery, because it's kind of slow.
yeah,
I,
I think it is. I think it's meandery on purpose.
yes,
Like I do think that was
exactly.
intentional,
Because
and I
you
think I just
no, go on.
I think personally am less inclined to enjoy that
Yeah.
just as from an entertainment standpoint.
Have you seen Mean
I
Streets?
don't. Mean Streets. No, what is that?
So it's basically the Scorsese film that was before Taxi Driver. I think it's
Oh, okay.
Robert De Niro as well, but I don't remember. But that
Tracks.
is a movie that basically I tried watching Taxi Driver one night and Mean Streets the next, and that was a slog.
Oh, man.
It really is a slog because there's this kind of the world building, I guess, is really really slow. Like I guess it's kind of supposed to feel realistic to a degree that it is mundane.
Sure.
And like
yeah,
it's a slug.
Scorsese is a genius, but 2 Scorsese movies in a row would be
yeah,
depending on the like maybe there are some for sure, but that would be tough.
yeah, because I think The Irishman, it's the recent one, right? That's like 3 hours long. Like that's another another one that's just brutal.
Don't even get me started on that.
What are your favorites? What are your biggest inspirations? And like your go-tos in film?
Yeah. So some of my favorites. So I love David Fincher. He did like Fight Club and The Social Network. I love Edgar Wright. He did the Cornetto trilogy, which is
yeah, Edgar Wright's amazing. Yeah.
Yeah. Tarantino's great. For writer, I love Aaron Sorkin. I think I know some people aren't the biggest fan of him, but I think he's like the best writer in Hollywood right now.
What has he worked on? Because I'm not familiar with writers at all.
He did like West Wing. He actually also did The Social Network.
Okay.
He did The Newsroom. He's really known for a lot of like really snappy, quick dialogue where it's people. He kind of coined the walk and talk, which is when 2 characters are just like walking down like through a scene, not stopping, just going for the whole length of it and just talking back and forth, like having a constant, like really quick, witty, snappy, where no one in real life could ever talk or think that fast and come up with that incredible dialogue, but you believe it in the movie because it's everyone.
It's like the reverse Scorsese.
yes, exactly.
Yeah. Any I guess any favorite movies that come to mind? I mean, you mentioned Tarantino. Yeah. I've seen a few things out of Tarantino's catalog. Because who hasn't, right?
Right. Yeah.
But I don't know. I personally think Kill Bill was overrated, but that might be a hot take.
Obviously, I think it is a hot take, but I'm not in disagreement. I think it's really good. Maybe a bit overrated, but
yeah. Pulp Fiction.
Inglourious Basterds. Have you seen that?
Yes. Very recently, actually. Yes, that is a really good movie. Yeah.
The opening scene in that movie, I point to it as I think it's the greatest opening scene in cinematic history. Like it's like 5 to 10 minutes, maybe like 8 minutes long, and I think it's perfect. I think it is a flawless moment of like. There's a lot of moments that like wordlessly tell you a lot. There's so much with like the performance, and it's in I think French, some French, some German, some English. And as someone who doesn't speak 2/3 of those languages, like I can still tell that the performances are incredible, and that like the dialogue itself is so great, which says a lot for the actors. And it's so intense. The tension is just he's constantly pulling back the bowstring more and more and more, and you're just waiting for him to release it. And it's so intense. Sorry, I get so amped up about this stuff. It gets so intense that when you finally like when it's revealed, like, oh, like you're hiding them under the floorboards, aren't you? And he says yes. And when they just start firing, it's just like the biggest release ever, and it just, oh my god, it blows me away. I think it is a flawless, perfect scene,
and it sets the tone beautifully as well. Of like,
yes, exactly.
You go into the film absolutely despising the bad guys, which are
Honda,
Nazis. So like rightfully so, but
Yeah, it's like it's easy to hate them obviously because they're Nazis, and that movie somehow makes you hate them more than you normally would.
And which leads to one of the most satisfying sort of payoffs at the end.
Yes. Oh,
when
so good. When everyone's
the
burning. And
it's just amazing.
Spoilers for Inglourious Basterds.
Yeah. In fact, there's, funnily enough, one moment incredibly satisfying, and I can't remember any of the characters or actors involved, but basically just when Hitler just gets sprayed with an MP40 is easily on par, satisfaction-wise, as, to go back to Taxi Driver, when Robert De Niro goes, "Suck on this," and just pops the pimp in the gut with the handgun.
Yes.
Beautiful. Like,
it's so surprising too, because like, even though the whole thing is like, historical fiction.
Yes.
It's so surprising because, like, we all know that that's not how he died. Right. So when they actually succeed at it,
it's like the how it should have ended. The how it should have ended of World War II. Yeah.
Yes.
But yeah, that is a great movie. Yeah. Okay, so let's talk about Stormchasers, because I mean, we've gone over some of the history and film and all that. So you mentioned that because of the pandemic, it seemed like a good idea to sort of get into an audio drama. What inspired the setting for Stormchasers?
A lot of things actually, but the biggest one is so it was originally a Dungeons and Dragons campaign that me and our producer Alex and Ariel, who's here now, and then a cousin of mine, John, that we all played in. And it, like, for me, I always had kind of so I was one of the players. I was Dodds, who is the kind of central character. It's an ensemble cast, but he's kind of the central character.
How surprising that you made your character the
I know,
central
right?
character.
I know. I mean, he's just the best. He's just the best character.
Yeah, of course.
But I felt such a connection to that game and to that story, because I'd been playing D&D for maybe like a year and a half at that point, but it was the first time that I'd really gotten into the role play aspect, that I had stopped doing, that I'd stopped just playing me, but I can use a sword good, or me, but I can shoot fireballs. Like, I actually figured out who this character was, what he wanted, what were his wants, what were his needs. I took it as a kind of just as a writer, right? Like, as if you're going to make a character, you're going to come up with what they need, what they want, how they see the world, what shaped them, blah, blah, blah.
Yeah.
And I went so hard into that I really felt this connection to that character, and then, by extension, to the story. And I really liked the story that Alex said. He was the DM. And, that was really so I thought for a while that it'd be a fun, thing to do or thing to make. But it was always, out of my scope, right? I'm not going to make a seafaring fantasy story. I just can't. I'm in a landlocked state, and I don't have the money for it. I don't have the crew for it. I don't have the skills for that. But, then when, the pandemic hit, I started thinking about it. I was like, oh, I can actually write whatever I want. Like, I'm free to do whatever. And, so then I started, turning it into an actual story. And that was, obviously, things had to change. It's not a one-for-one retelling. But, that was where I kind of came into it. So obviously that was the primary inspiration, because it's effectively an adaptation. But I also took a lot from Avatar: The Last Airbender. That's a big one for me. I love that show.
And, I just watched that show for the first time this spring. And it is so good. It's amazing. It really is amazing. Even it's a kid's cartoon, but even as an adult, man, these characters are so good. They complement each other perfectly. Amazing protagonists. Just it's an amazing show.
It won a Hugo Award, I think, for, it's such a specific award, but it was best representation of refugees from wartime. It was holy God, but it kind of does do that really well.
Yeah.
It got real attention. It's so good. I love the setting. I love the characters. And that's the tone that I wanted to hit. Something that is um, for kids, kids and young adults, but is able to be watched and appreciated by adults without having making anyone stoop down to a certain level or have
Yeah.
to overly reach up.
Which is
Um,
a bit of a that's a rare thing in kids cartoons. I think
yeah,
especially more so now. I think in recent memory, the one show that I have to give credit to is Adventure Time in that way, because
yeah,
it's
yeah.
because it's got that, it still draws in adults like amazingly well.
Absolutely.
And
I feel like both Adventure Time and Last Airbender, at least at this point, but for a long time, had the majority adult audience.
yeah, so like yeah, that's like a rare gem in sort of
Yeah.
kids TV, especially to have such like wide reaching and compelling like just writing all around.
Yeah.
So I
I
guess
think that,
well, I was just gonna
sorry, I
say
wanted
the
to,
the
I'm
beauty of
laughing.
the delay of audio calls. Um,
Yeah, I know, right?
you go ahead. You go ahead.
Oh, yeah. Last thing I would say is that, like, I think that a lot of TV executives and writers uh, they don't give kids enough credit. I've
Yeah,
always thought that. I think that they they don't respect their intelligence they have. Um, I have a 5-year-old niece or 6-year-old niece that is watching Stormchasers, a show that is really not meant for kids that young. Like my ideal audience was like 12 to like I don't know 25, I guess.
sure.
So she's like well below. She like follows it. Like she has correctly guessed twists that I am planning that have not been revealed yet, even in the like recordings that we've done. Like
Yeah,
she's like in it, and like I think that like that, and she's 6 years old, and I think that give her 5 more years, you know, like she's going to be way more able to understand this stuff, and I think that all kids can get that if you just don't talk down to them,
yes,
and so I that's what I really wanted to hit on. That's what I really respect about a lot of the shows from like that era, um, and really what I tried to hit on myself with this one.
yeah. So I guess you mentioned Last Airbender is a big inspiration. I guess really how does that inspiration sort of work its way into Storm Chasers in that way? Is it what you just mentioned there, where it's like you want to try to tell a story that can be appreciated by all ages, but still has that complexity, or is it more than that?
Yeah, so that's the main one for
Yeah.
sure. But tone also. You know, Last Airbender can get into some heavy themes, but it's never too heavy. And
Yes.
and the jokes that come in also never at any point in the show's run undercut the tension or the themes. And that's what I really wanted as well. That's what I'm kind of taking from that show, which is able to have a serious moment and a real character like emotional moment that is not so much that you want to like die from watching or you want to turn it off, but also like I said, doesn't talk down to you and is not one that doesn't frame a complex issue that everyone faces as just this simple, easy, black white. It's nothing. Um, while at the same time, it being a fun watch. It's still an adventure comedy, and
Yes.
so making sure the jokes that are in there don't take away from the lessons to learn or take away from the legitimate character moments and the emotional beats that we have coming in, and especially now in the release, we just released episode 9 yesterday. Um, Kind of from episode 6 onward, it really everything really picks up way faster for the story and for the characters, and uh, I feel like you know I feel like we've been able to get a really good balance in between the serious and the comedy, the action, the emotional moments, the dramatic moments. I think that we've got a good balance of that. At least I would like to believe.
Yeah. And that I think I understanding that, like you said, you don't want to undercut the seriousness with jokes, but there still needs to be some element of lightheartedness, and
Right.
like that's something that definitely Last Airbender did really well. So I mean, I think
Yeah.
As far as inspirations for something like this goes, that seems like the perfect sort of thing to draw from. Especially, I mean, weirdly a masterpiece. Honestly, like I don't.
It is. It is.
As like I said, I only saw it in full this year, and yeah, it was surprisingly good.
Oh,
Have you seen
yeah,
they've
one of my favorite shows.
announced 3
Yeah,
animated movies coming out?
yeah. One of them is like the adult gang, uh, and then I think it's two like new stories. I think.
Yeah, it was it. This is
I think.
Avatar Kyoshi was one.
Oh, they're doing a Kyoshi story. Okay, cool. Yeah.
Yes, and then not. Oh no, I'm sure my brain is a colander.
Is it like a Zuko movie
Yes,
specifically, or is
and
it
it's a
a?
Zuko
Yeah.
movie that looks like it's between the end of Last Airbender and the
Yeah.
start
Yeah.
of Korra, right? So
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
at whatever point he was the Fire Lord, I would assume. And I think the third one is Korra, actually.
Oh, okay. Cool. Nice.
Yeah. So yeah, that's always fun. I'm looking forward to that mainly because there is a live action thing coming as well on Netflix,
Yeah. Which
which has
hope I don't know.
been
Hopefully.
well, it's been condemned by the show creators, right? It's one of those things where it's
Yeah.
like, and it was the same with the M Night Shyamalan movie, where the
Yeah.
original creators of the show were like, we don't really want anything to do with this anymore, and so
Yeah.
yeah, the live action is probably going to be a big miss, but the
Well, and
animated
I don't think
movies
that.
have promise.
Yeah, I don't think that any. I'm immediately turned off when someone says, "Oh, we're going to turn this cartoon, this animated thing, into a live action,"
Yeah,
because they're simply different mediums that I
yeah,
think don't like the way that animation is done. Like, there's so much like stretching and contorting and twisting that is super unnatural when you just look at a frame of it. But in motion, it works so well, and the things that you can do, the movements, and even like the way that certain lines can get delivered, they just don't quite work when in live action. And
yeah.
like certain like insane, ridiculous moments, I don't think you can have a Dragon Ball Z fight in live action. You just can't do
Boy,
it.
did they
It's too
try though.
insane. And boy, did they fail.
Yeah, I mean, I completely agree. Uh, just looking at the Avatar movie was a
Yeah,
tragedy. Like,
it's
it's
so
one of
bad,
those
atrocious.
things where, I mean, animation, you draw whatever you want, but you
Yeah,
try translate something that can be displayed as like insanely as earthbending, and you're like, well, now we've got to think about a CGI budget for people throwing boulders around, and it's like, okay, we'll have 5 dudes throw one boulder, maybe.
yeah,
It just doesn't work. But yeah,
yeah.
the animated movies look promising. Sorry to derail this for just promo for
No, no, yeah, totally.
the
I
Last
love
Airbender movies.
Last Airbender.
Yeah.
Um,
Um.
and to get, I guess, get back on your last question, like,
Yeah.
um, Dragon Ball Z was another big inspiration. Demon Slayer, a lot of One Piece for sure. Like a lot of like anime is what I was really kind of going off of. Um,
One Piece being
just
a
because I
great choice
like
because it's a
that.
pirate adventure, right? Yeah.
Exactly right. Like, and because I love just anime normally, but like I feel like it's something that hasn't really been done in the audio drama world, like an anime inspired, anime like thing, and like an action show. I mean, you rarely see fantasy. There's some for sure, but you rarely see it in audio dramas. And action is like never seen because it's
Mm.
really hard to do action when you
A
can't
lot of
see.
horror sci-fi audio dramas out there, though. I'm pretty sure. Just
Yeah, I mean, there's a ton of those,
yeah.
which is and it makes sense. Like horror for an audio only medium totally works
Mm.
because horror sound is such an important aspect to horror
Yeah.
movies. And you can, if you can't see something, whatever you can imagine, a lot of horror
Exactly.
movies, and yeah, and like even
Yeah.
like books, like everything, it'll let you imagine it, give you a lack of information, and usually sound is what gives you the ability to imagine it. So it's a match made in heaven for
Yes.
horror and sci-fi especially. Like so that those work super well. Comedy works pretty well because usually you just need dialogue. Um, but drama for sure works for the same reason. But action and adventure is harder if you can't see what they are exploring, if you can't see the moves that they're that they're performing. If you can't like get the weight of a punch, uh, that makes it more difficult, and that is something that we wanted to like. That was a big thing we took. I know we mentioned it in the Dallas episode, but we've taken like 2 years to do this thing.
Yeah.
And some of it was certainly on me for just because it's hard, and depression hurts the ability to move things along, and
yeah,
certain elements, but also a lot of time was spent on the fights, a lot to make it work well in the audio medium, and also the kind of pseudo like puppet animation that we have as
yeah.
well. So if it has to work on both, like that is really important, that it sounds right, it looks right, and that every fight scene is spent a long time on each one making it work.
One burning question that I have right now,
Yeah.
given because I play Dungeons and Dragons as well, and I'm as someone who gets very invested in the creation of a character and everything, was it difficult casting someone to play your own D&D character? Because that sounds nightmarish to me.
So it actually, believe it or not, was not that hard for me. Or rather, it was hard in that, it was hard in that it's really important.
Yes.
Because he's the main character. But it really wasn't that tough because Dodds is such David is in the chat right now. David is the actor who plays Dodds.
Yes.
But it actually really wasn't like it's because I knew. For me, it was less about what he sounded like. I didn't need him to sound like me.
Okay.
What I needed was for someone to hit the right emotional hits, right? Like Dodds is, fun loving. He's goofy. He's emotional. He loves his friends. He loves food. He is from a place that was stifling for all of his creativity, and for all of his, extroverted kind of desires. And so now he's in this new place, and he loves everything. He loves new experiences. He loves to explore and to find things. He loves to improve himself through combat. He loves, so much about just life in general. And so I really wanted, and again, he's goofy, and I wanted someone who could hit those aspects instead of just someone who sounds like me, because I'm not an actor. So like when I'm voicing Dodds in the game, I'm probably not doing a good job. I probably sound like just like a normal guy.
Yeah.
But like, so when I got all of them, and we got a lot of auditions. I mean, I've probably listened to at this point, I mean, well over 200 auditions for the characters. But for Dodds there were a lot. But really, it came down to there was two. It was David and someone else. And I remember I was like going back and forth, and I remember I listened to David's one more time, and I was like, I think, because again, they were kind of similar, but I was like, I think that David has so much more potential than this other guy. And I like that because that was the X factor. There was something, and it's so hard to explain that. Everyone will say like everyone's got an X factor, but it's hard to explain what it is. And David had it, and that has proven to be correct, especially in the not yet released 12th episode.
Okay.
There we were recording, and David, I'm just gonna go off, man. I'm gonna go in. Like, it's a very emotional scene. It's our most dramatic scene, and it is. So it was really important, right? It's supposed to hit you just square in the chest and be just a brutality.
Okay.
And it's not funny. It's not fun. It is just heavy. And we were recording, and we do it all through Discord. So they record on their own systems.
Yeah.
So it's good quality, but we just can look at each other through Discord so that we're all recording at the same time, so they can bounce off each other, and I don't have to direct each of them separately. We can just do it all in one. And it's just David and Sarah Lynn, or other. She plays. Well, I don't want to say it because I don't want to spoil anything.
Okay.
But his scene partner, Sarah, and it was just them two, which is a lot to just have two people giving their performances in a really heavy scene.
Yeah.
And I mean, they both did incredibly. But I remember a moment where I was in shock. I was like not even listening. I was just engrossed. And I look up at David's video, and he is like actually crying, and it like jolted me. I was like, oh my god. And I sent Alex, a producer, a text afterwards, and I was like, hey, David's the real deal. We got to get him a contract so that he can't leave us. Like we got to get him a contract. Like this is insane. Um, and I mean, he blew me away. Absolutely blew me away. And I'm so glad that I was able to see that X factor in him, because I could have gone with the other guy, and who knows, what would have happened. But not to discuss on David. I mean,
no.
I've been so thrilled about everyone that we've got, and they're all like, I say it like this, they're all like Reddit randos. Like I just posted on Reddit, like, hey, here's the scenes that if you all can record this, like we don't do a lot of monologues, so I was like, here's a 2-person scene, just ignore the other person's lines and just send me that. So they're all just like random people I just found, and I am just blown away with how incredible they all are. Like, it's not that some of them are good and some of them are okay, and like one's kind of right. Like, all of them are incredible.
There's several of the chat, so it would be so funny if you were just like, yeah, the 4 of them are great, but one guy, I don't know.
But Shogo is just such a pain.
Just put him on blast.
He's so bad. I mean, no, it's really I'm blown away the whole time. Like every time we record an episode, and the later it went too, the easier my job became, because as everyone kind of got into the real swing of things, everyone got an idea of who their characters are, and how they should act in certain moments. There was like a full episode, I think, of this almost, but like a lot of moments where we'd get through a scene and I'd just say, yeah, that was literally perfect, no notes to any of you, and I'd be like, let's just do it one more time as a safety, and then let's move on. Just don't change a single thing, and where we could just blow through it. Shogo saying that I'm safe across the sea, but you know what? Good. I'm glad that you're not around. All right.
Shogo's mid.
Shogo's great. Shogo is mid. He's absolutely incredible. He plays Longbeard, and God, I love Longbeard. But yeah, it made things really easy, and because they just knocked it out of the park. I'm amazed by it.
Did you? Because you mentioned I can't remember exactly, but you had essentially like friends and family involved in the D&D campaign that sort of inspired this. Were any of them involved in the casting for their roles? Did they have a say?
I sent my the people who I was like, all right, here's the kind of final, and taking their opinions on it. But I also kind of mentioned to them, I was like, it was kind of an awkward conversation. I was like, first off, do we have your blessing to do this?
Mm-hmm.
They said yes. So I wouldn't have done it if anyone just straight up did not want me to do that, or I would have changed the character. But then I was like, look, this is going to be a little awkward, but I have a preference that there be less involvement from you all, simply because I don't want there to be a divide, right? I don't want it to be like, I'd actually prefer maybe we do things like this, and he's like, well, that's not how it would be. Like, that's not how this character would be. But it's like, no, okay, this is my interpretation, and I really needed that, I guess, what am I trying to say here?
Like a degree of separation.
Difference of, yeah. This is going to make it sound way worse than I mean it to, but kind of the pecking order, right? Like, I needed to make sure that as the showrunner and the writer and the director, that like hierarchy needed to remain kind of intact.
Yeah, because
especially if like
it's an adaptation, it's not going to be completely 100% true.
Exactly.
You don't want people, I guess, being like, trying to micromanage sort of what happens throughout the show, because it's not word for word. It's sort of a
Right.
separate creative idea with the same names, I guess.
Yeah. And not that I was expecting that to happen.
Yeah.
I mean, again, Ariel's in the chat right now. She's listening. She played Jackie. Um, like, it's not that I expected trouble.
Mm.
I just like really wanted to make sure that everything. Let's say I had them involved there in the Discord, and everyone was communicating. They're communicating with the actors. If I give a note, and then they come in maybe in like a back way. Again, not that I would expect this weird
No, like a
like double
consultant
cross, but
sort of thing.
yeah. But like if they give a different view of it, I don't want that to happen. Like
Yeah.
no. Actually, you're gonna do it this way because I'm the director and I'm your boss. Like you're actually doing it this way.
Yeah,
You're
and
not listening to anyone.
suddenly there's like a back and forth of like, oh, well, the character wouldn't do this, and it's like, oh, well, sadly for the writing of the show, that's what's gonna happen, and suck it up,
Right. And
Buttercup.
yeah, and I right. Anyway, I really didn't want to have that complication, that even potential, and I didn't want to do that to my friends, right? Like I've got my friend and my cousin. I'm
Yeah.
gonna like get on them, and then now maybe my reaction or my relationship with like the actors is maybe weird. Like if I'm like, no, actually, don't listen to them. I'm in charge.
Yeah,
I'm like,
that's just
I
an
like
awkward situation to put people in general.
yeah, like
Yeah.
that's not the kind of director I am. Um, but the involvement was, in the kind of the finalists of who I was picking. Like I wouldn't just hear what they think. And in the first few episodes, I sent the first couple scripts their way just to say like, what do you all think? You all are involved in this, like in that you all know the story, so I don't have to like go into all the lore. Like, you all think this is good? You're my first ones. I'm sending this to. Please review and edit and send me any criticism you might.
Yeah, like as in the campaign I'm playing right now, if someone was to make an adaptation of it and take my character, and I would hope that, I guess as a courtesy, that would be the least someone would do it, was let me see the scripts, because at the end of the day, that's a character that I cherish, and you're putting words in his mouth, and
Right.
it's like, oh well, I got to make sure you're at
Right.
least getting the right tone, and that sort of thing.
Right.
Yeah.
And I totally get it. Like that's because if truly if the roles were reversed and if someone had taken Dodds and was doing things like with him, I'd feel maybe a little weird about it.
Yeah.
Like someone that I
Right.
cared about that much, like I would feel strange, especially like me as a writer. Like I'd be like, well, how come I'm not helping with this, this and that. And I totally understand that being something that someone would feel weird about and uncomfortable. Again, that's why I kind of said like, this is gonna be an awkward little convo here. But like I want there to be no hard feelings here. Like just this is the vibe that I want. This is a project that I want to make sure is running as smoothly as possible, and especially in now Ariel has film experience for sure. But in regards to my cousin John, he's an engineer. He's not a film person. He's not a writer. I also I had to kind of tell him like, I'm not that there was any problems, but I had to tell him, I'm the creative guy in charge here. Like I'm the film guy. To some degree, I need to make sure that my view is respected more than
Yes.
a non-creative.
A little bit of, I guess, more creative agency in that case, where it's like, listen,
right.
I've been doing this for a long time. Just kind of trust me with this. Much that might hurt, sort of bite your tongue or something. It's like,
right,
for the greater good.
Exactly. Even the designs, like we had, there was a lot of like redesign for the characters to get the tone. I wanted them to be. Me and Steven were playing a lot of Hades, and so we kind of designed it a little bit with an Hades inspiration. So they all kind of play that game and then
design. So
yeah. Oh yeah. So if you play the game and look at the show, like you can kind of tell. Which I love. I love how all of our art looks. But our original, I actually have it here. So our original designs, when it was still just a game, hopefully it'll show up. But like, was this?
Oh yeah. Okay.
And they look like way older because they are like they're older, they're gruffer, they're a little more like it's almost like Darkest Timeline of Stormchasers show. Like right. Jackie has like a side shave and like a big scar over her eye, and like Dodds is like big bulky dude who's like he looks like he's like 38, and like Quinn is just like this gruff like never smiles, but he's got this, because they're just badass D&D characters, but that's not what we're going for here now. So
Yeah.
there had to be this big redesign, and even that was an aspect of like, look, I'm going to change how they look. Like Jackie went from being a dark-haired kind of a dark brunette / black hair to a red-haired, right? Like we changed like a whole lot of the designs. Everyone slimmed down a bit. They're all younger, and I kind of told them like, this is also kind of gonna be the deal. Like there
Yeah,
might
because
be
you like you
issues
said, it's
with
for the
design.
tone. You're taking it from a more dark fantasy, like hardened D&D character to like more lighthearted fantasy adventure. Yeah, you don't necessarily need like scarred, battle-hardened, mean-looking
Exactly.
crew for this kind of more lighthearted adventure. Even if you're kind of still trying to embody those characters
Yeah.
in a different tone.
Exactly.
I mean the whole process seems pretty fascinating, and like for yourself, like you said, you're not an actor yourself, so you didn't really see, I guess, you be playing Dodds for the sort of production of it, which is,
Oh
again,
no.
like you don't have, I guess, the luxury of something like Critical Role, where
Right.
the whole table is voice actors, and when it came to the
Right.
animated show, they all voice their own characters, and so they can do kind of however they wish in that way.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
I I want to apologize to everyone listening for the sound of my voice because I hate it. I hate how I sound. Like what I'm forcing everyone to listen to.
Oh
Uh,
my god.
yeah, no,
Oh,
me on
I'll
camera is
tidy it up in post. Don't you worry about it.
oh, thank God, thank
Yeah.
God. Just replace me with one of those AI, like on TikTok or something.
Yeah, sure. Like just though that really, really, just very text to speech, like female voice that is in every TikTok.
Yeah,
You
yeah.
won't believe what I did when I made the Stormchasers pod. Like,
Yeah,
God's sake.
that would be, even that would be better.
Now you talked
No, but
about.
I just
Oh no, yeah, go ahead.
I was saying I felt like it gave me a good experience to direct. Like I could do that effectively, but I'm even just beyond like how I feel like I sound. I like I don't know how to act. Like if I haven't taken any classes on that. I haven't
Yeah,
trained in that. I don't have any experience with it. Like you know, shut up, Ariel. Uh,
talking shit in chat.
yeah. I just don't. I can't do it, and I don't see the point in letting someone like me. I wouldn't let someone who had no training, didn't have a microphone that was good, had no idea how to act or how to make all the how to edit his own stuff. I'm not gonna let that person be Dodds. No, I gotta
Right.
make like I hear it. Oh, this guy, David Iscardo, he sounds super crisp. He's got it down. He clearly knows what he's doing. Like, all right, yeah, he's the one, not me. I'm just
Yeah.
a guy.
Yeah. I guess that's fair. I think as someone who sort of I kind of pride myself that I'm pretty good at voice stuff. I couldn't imagine anyone else playing my characters, because the two characters that I've played over the past like 4 years of D&D have had very sort of specific voices that, like,
Yeah.
oh, especially I'll never miss out on a chance to sort of boast about the changeling that I played, because he had 4 unique personas as a changeling, and each
Oh,
persona had a different
nice.
accent and voice and timbre and everything. So like, I couldn't imagine sort of handing the reins to someone else and saying, "Here, you do a better job." But as,
Yeah.
as your like, your field is not being in front of the camera or in front of the mic in that way, right? So it makes
Right.
sense to sort of be able to hand it off, and I can't be easy, because it's still your character, and you kind of
Right.
put your
Still kind
heart
of
and
my
soul into
baby,
it.
and
Yeah, exactly.
yeah.
But also, I'm sure there's a certain kind of satisfaction of finding someone that is that talented to bring it to life in a way that you don't think you could.
Absolutely. And it's a lot of directors and probably writers too, but a lot of directors have and let me maybe make another disclaimer. A lot of younger, less experienced, I would imagine, directors, and certainly me when I was in college and a little bit afterwards, have a view of actors as, well, I mean, I'll just say it as it's a disrespectful view. It is the idea that they're just cattle. You're herding
Yeah.
them in front of the camera. They're just there just to do the thing that you know how you do it. You're going to tell them exactly how to do it in every single way. Boom, boom, boom. This now, do not deviate from what I say.
Yeah.
You know, that they're just action figures that you're positioning.
Right.
And that is a good way to get a bad product. It
Good way
is
to get a bad
because
rep too.
exactly, yeah. First
Yeah.
off, everyone's gonna hate you because you're just kind of being an asshole.
Yeah.
But number two, it's a way to get a bad performance because actors are really creative people and they can bring so much to it. There are so many lines and so many scenes that ended up playing out so differently
Yeah.
than how I imagined it when I wrote it. Like even like just undiscussed, where they simply read my words in a different way when they first got the script, and so we didn't talk about it. They just assumed we were on the same page, and like their interpretation of it, of so many scenes, were just like incredible. And I just like I sometimes I tell them like that wasn't what I had in mind, but I loved it. Great job. But sometimes I just be like, I'm just gonna keep quiet. I'm gonna let them do
Yeah.
their thing. I'm not gonna get in their head at all. Like just move through. Like in our latest episode, there's a moment where they're like walking through a tower and they're like, yo, we're gonna, everyone, you should all start thinking about what you're gonna have for lunch. And they start talking. And then Dodds interrupts. And when I wrote it, I imagine it's like, they were like, but sir, we really need to get into that library. It'd be really important. Chicken wings. And then we pause. That's what I want for lunch. And then they move on. But when David read it in the actual, in the recording, he was like, chicken wings. And it was, I mean, it killed us. It was so funny. And like, it made my okay joke into one that was like so much better. And like we all cracked up and died. Like we had to like pause the scene for a bit and like recover. And it's a really good moment that is more true to the character than I initially wrote it. And I think that if you're going to be a director, especially of your own work, you need to be willing to accept that maybe you don't always have the best like take in your head.
Yeah.
That there are other people who can bring greatness and brilliance to a role that maybe you simply just didn't see.
So this sort of ties into what I talked with Dallas about on her episode, when there's kind of that creative process going into recording where they give feedback or they change the performance and they bring something new to it, and that's a great example. Are there any sort of, well, I guess other than the chicken wings moment, any that either took you completely off guard or like really like stood out as in that moment as sort of feedback, or like, hey, maybe this character should say this instead? I wouldn't want you to spoil anything, so I'll just have to say in the first 9 episodes where it really clicked for you, where there was sort of a moment that's like, okay, this is going to be more collaborative than sort of puppeteering, like you said.
So yeah,
as a young director,
I think kind of throughout the whole thing, it was like a nice kind of gradual incline of like, oh, okay, they've got it now. Like after like our 3rd episode, when we were recording the 4th, I think it was like around that 4 to 5 is kind of when I was like, okay, they've got it under control. And so that means that like, definitely listen when they talk, right? Like if they're going to tell me something, like really consider it. Not that I wasn't in the first place, but like that really, I don't know, I guess maybe there was the click, but the one that comes to my head first is Dallas has always been, I feel like, really in tune with her character. And I think it was in the 9th episode, actually. She sent me just like a private message where she was like, hey, I wanted to talk to you about this scene here with Jackie, because it was a pretty big scene. It was our second to last scene in that episode. It was with her and Evandal. And it was it's a pretty important scene. It's an emotional scene. And she was like, I had some questions, and there were a couple moments where I feel like I'm confused as to why Jackie would act this way.
Okay.
And I love that she did this, because I can imagine that maybe being a little difficult to do, right? To go to the guy who wrote it for you and say, hey, uh, I think in this really important scene, I don't think you wrote her right. I think that
Yeah.
you actually didn't do that great of a job here. Not that she said it in those words, but that's, I could see someone thinking like, this is a big moment. Uh, but then she had this like, a lot. I mean, like a real like character and scene dissection of the entire thing, and I loved it. I mean, it was great. It made me first off feel really good that she had delved so deeply into my work, but also like everything that she was saying, I was like, oh damn, like that's a great point. Like that
Right.
would actually be a lot better. Or like a lot. Also in the 13th episode, our season finale, there were a lot of moments like that too, where like people were kind of coming to me and saying like, what do you think about this? How about this? Or maybe I should read it like this. And I love when they do that. Um, because it just means, because we're all on the same team, and it's not that they're coming to me saying, hey, I think that I'm better at this than you. It's them saying, what do you think about this? I think that this could make this scene better. And if I think so too, I say, hell yeah,
Yeah.
like that you did make it better. Like it is a, we're all just trying to make the best thing that we can. And so to shut someone down or to put your ego into it, it's it could only serve to make a worse product,
Yeah.
because you can always, there
Absolutely.
have been times, yeah, I mean, there have been times where someone has come to me with an idea or with a thought, um, or had a read that was different than I expected, and it was uh, you know something I didn't really want. I ultimately wasn't really into. I don't berate them for. One of the first things I said to them was, I'm okay with a little improv. Like, as long as you don't change the meat of the scene, you all can kind of go for it. Like, I want
Yeah.
to see what you got. But if they give a read that I don't really love, I might say, hey, hold on real quick. Let's actually take it back to that line. I'd really rather it be like this. I'm just saying I direct them. But like, it's a way to, you give your feedback, but don't shut them down. And if they're doing something different that maybe works, then let them go. Do the whole scene, and then once you cut, then you describe. Then you explain another way of doing it, because maybe it does work, and maybe you only find out in the editing. Like you don't know if it's gonna play right.
Yeah.
So I like to get both. And uh, sorry that I'm kind of rambling a little
No,
bit,
no,
but
no. This is great.
there, it's there is a there's an arrogance, I think, to kind of any content creation, but especially for writing, in that you are like, I'm kind of going into this thinking, oh, my words deserve to be heard, right? What I have in my head, not only am I going to take the time to make it, but it deserves to be heard, and you all should watch it. And I think that's it's good and bad. It's good
Yeah.
because that makes you create. Like that's how we get things. Any kind of, you have an idea that you think is good, that's positive. But it can be a trap if you get too locked into that mindset. And of like, it's my words, it's my idea. I'm the one in control. I may have wrote it, I may have directed it, but it's not, the show isn't just mine. It is not like, I mean, obviously I'm biased. I think it's a great show. I love the show. There are moments that still make me laugh, even
Yeah.
though I've read or heard them 1,000 times. There are moments that I'll get the edit back from Issa, who is our editor, who I see is also in chat, uh, and I'll just be wowed. I'll be like, that was so good. I would watch the hell out of this thing if I was a viewer. And you know, like so I really like it, and it's not, I don't like it just because of me. And I think a lot of people can easily fall into that trap of, it's mine, I did this,
Yeah.
good job me. Hey everyone, thanks for carrying my trail. Like I'm the bride. Thanks for carrying my trail down the aisle. Now get the hell out of here. I'm the one
Hmm.
on the altar.
Yeah.
Like, no, this is a group effort.
because yeah, I mean, you said there's a level of arrogance, a level of almost narcissism in content creation generally, because
Yeah.
you have to believe that what you are creating, people are gonna like, and that
Yes.
takes a level of cockiness. But especially when it comes to something that is as collaborative as this, like you've got to have some kind of humility and be able to admit when, well, one, admit when you're wrong, but that goes for anything. But also just admit when, something that you envisioned could just be improved. And I think that, like, I mean, by the sounds of it, as you've matured as a director, you more appreciate how much actors can bring to a role. Because
Yeah.
When I was talking to Dallas about D&D, I don't know how many other members of the cast are D&D players.
I think I don't know about maybe most, but definitely a lot. And I'm trying. Dallas is definitely our biggest.
Yeah.
Actually, not. Yeah, I don't know. Now that I'm thinking about it,
Show
I
show of
definitely know a
hands
lot
for
of
anyone
people
who's in
have
chat,
played.
but
Yeah, right.
yeah.
Like I know Odd, the guy that he does our music, and also he plays Captain Cross, and Jebido just released or just introduced the last episode. I know he at least has played, but I think he
Yeah.
does play. Um, or the crew, they are Steven plays, Alex plays, I play. Yeah, I'm not sure. I don't remember actually who all has. I think Shogo has played. Um,
Because I
I don't
think
know
that that brings to it a certain, because I haven't acted in anything. Well, I should say I haven't really acted in something since like high school, I guess, right?
sure.
But Dallas and I talked about how D&D is a performative sort of creative outlet, and so
Yeah.
you know it makes that the perfect sort of inspiration for something like this. And people in D&D bring a lot to the table for to put life into the characters, right? And
Yes.
when you're having actors essentially do that, bring life to characters that you have sort of written out on paper,
Mm-hmm.
they're gonna bring more of they're gonna bring themselves into it as much as they're gonna bring sort of the written word, right? There's gonna be,
Yeah.
it's never gonna be, because at that point you might as well have a text to speech, just read the lines, right? There's more to the lines
Exactly.
than just what is said, and when so you mentioned it was sort of a ramping up process as it became more collaborative, but it is as they're bringing, I need to get these words straight in my head or I'm just going to say the same things over and over, as they're playing these characters sort of day in day out or week in week out.
Mm-hmm.
It's kind of the merging, their performance that they bring to it is
Yes.
also going to be merging with the character that you've written to create something more than that. And that's why you end up with these moments of like Dallas sort of questioning the character's choices in that situation, because Dallas is undertaking that character for the time and kind of understanding it
Yeah.
in a more real way than as the words are written. And just that
Yeah.
whole
Absolutely.
process is like, well, speaks to their ability as actors, of course, and
Yeah.
it speaks to your ability to write those characters in a way that is like really, I guess, able to be brought to life, and to be sort of embodied with that understanding as an actor of like, this is the character that I'm playing, and these are the quirks and the traits that they have, and kind of enabling them to contribute more in the conversation of sort of like what would be said. Completely forgot where I was going with this point, but just like,
It happened to me a bunch of times during this where I just, all right, ramble, just fix it, just
yeah,
ramble.
yeah. But
Um,
I mean, the whole process as it is. I remember sort of Dallas talking about how she'd never really worked on a project where everyone's kind of in the call for
mhm.
the recordings.
Yeah, I thought that was so interesting when she said that,
Yeah,
because because I knew that some productions for just for audio, it would be they give you the lines and basic direction, they send them over, you listen to them, you take your notes, send it over, they give it back. But I came from the live action film world, and that's obviously not how it's done there. Like everyone's in the same room, and
yeah,
I I can't imagine a world where we're doing it that way. I mean, the idea that like that for the David scene that I was mentioning earlier that like just blew us all away. The idea that I would have gotten that same performance if it was just him by himself
Yeah.
in his recording booth, there's there's no way. Like, I mean, he's good enough to have given us a good performance. Still, I'm confident on that. But there's absolutely no way. I mean, he was feeding off of Sarah, who was feeding off of him, and I mean, just the energy was electric. And
Yeah.
I think to not have that, that element of it is doing such a disservice. And even for directing, like, again, I'm not going to get as great a good performance, I believe. And so my directing might be different, right? Like, the way that someone sounds when they're responding to a question is different than if they're, not, or if they're excited or whatever. And so it helps me to know the context. If I
Yes.
have the whole context of how everyone is saying each thing, then that allows me to more adequately and more accurately uh, direct them to where I think that we all need to go. So I can't imagine not doing it all live.
Yeah, because the whole thing, I guess, ends up feeling more organic. You
Mm-hmm.
like you have the you have the actors just having a conversation as those characters rather than just reading lines. I mean, even if
That's
even
exactly it.
if you know, like you said, you can't imagine that performance being nearly as compelling. Like, imagine you were reading the lines for sort of David's counterpart in that line in that
Mm-hmm.
sort of scene, as opposed to uh, the, the the other actor. Like, that just kind of takes it all apart. There's less immersion. They
Yeah,
can't see
I
one
can't
another as those characters if they aren't in the same room in a way.
exactly, and like I can't get the same kind of emotive nature no matter how hard I try, especially because I have to listen to
Yeah,
direct. I can't get fully into the scene because I can't. I have to be omnipresent, and even if I could do both, if I'm so okay, so let's say that like you said, I have to play Sarah's role.
yes,
If so, okay, so now I'm playing a female character that has never interacted where I personally rather have never interacted with David's character. Is he going to be able to get into that same mindset?
right,
Do I have to do a voice? Like,
yeah,
what's or am I going to act this the way that I think it should be, and is it going to translate? It would absolutely not be the same. It's
yeah.
not just me reading him in for a monologue. It's there's way more to it than
So over, I mean, the couple of years of the
that.
show's sort of production, any personal highlights in the whole adventure? Like, what were your sort
Oh,
of highlight moments? Whether it was in the case of recording or just finally getting it out there and being able to say that it was done. Like, what were the standout moments for you in that process?
oh man, I mean, there really are so many. Chicken wings was a good one. Just how it got all of us. Uh, in the fifth episode, it's for those who haven't seen there's we play around a lot with the structure and the format where we do like anime parodies and like a noir parody, and we change up. It's a drunken retelling of the previous, or rather, it's the retelling of now sober characters of the night before when they were super drunk.
Right.
And so, how does each character interpret each other character? And that was a lot of fun, specifically for Shogo, who plays Longbeard, but also a character Ladriel, who has three versions. The normal one, who is being told by Zago, the super charming and handsome debonair one that's being told by Jackie, and then the slimy sleazeball, like, ruffian that's being told by Evandal. And so, that's a kind of a difficult acting challenge because he has to play the same character three times in radically different ways.
Yes.
And he just like when he in the sleazy one was first, and he just hit us Captain Jacqueline Brightwood. Like he gave us this like, oh, it was such a funny moment, and where I realized like, oh, okay, good, they're all gonna have so much fun with this because
Yeah.
that's what the episode really called for, and so it led to such a great time. Like that was a great moment. Um, the scene where there's an episode in the last or the scene in the last or the fourth episode, the final scene, it's a scene with Jackie and Zago, and Dallas and Ginger, who plays Zago, just like acted the hell out of it. And it was around then that I realized, where I was like, okay, that was where the click came, where I was like, okay, these people know the characters. Like
Yeah.
okay, they got it. Me and Alex and Steven had a cabin trip at one point where we had just got a little pre-production boys trip where we've got a cabin in this like hiking trail, like this mountain area in Kentucky, and we just like got a long weekend. We just stayed there for 3 days, and we just like wrote and brainstormed and like drew art and had just this massive like brainstorm. I won't mention the. Steven says we do not mention the cabin. I won't mention some of the more wild details, but let's just say that we wrote episode 5, the one with the drunken retellings. Let's just say that it's so weird because we ourselves were drunk when we did it.
Right. Yeah.
And then things got a little wild, but but that was like a lot of fun, and it's where I really like clicked on, where I was like, okay, we're in the like, I don't know, I was able to just get everything else out and focus on the writing and the story. We planned everything out. It was a lot of fun, and it helped me really get more invested in the story. I'm not going to get too personal about it, but I, at the time, was going through a lot that made it difficult for me to actually write and to get my creative energy out.
Yeah.
And I mean, I think by then, I had probably gone like, it could have been like 3 months without having, really done much, or maybe I'd gotten like 4 pages in a script done. And so getting away from it all, like being with 2 of my closest friends, focusing, just focus down, brainstorming like crazy, having a good time, cooking a bunch of good food, like that really helped me a lot to get back into the creative process. And so that I consider a standout.
Yeah, sounds awesome. I'm not gonna lie, cabin getaway with the boys to really just reinvigorate.
Oh yeah,
yeah,
absolutely.
I mean, I have no further questions at this point. Yeah. But I mean, I don't know if you have anything you want to ask me, or if you want to just get the good word out there. Feel free.
Sure. For all those listening, if you haven't gotten a chance to check out the show, you can look up Stormchasers on pretty much anywhere you get podcasts. Like Spotify is kind of our primary one, but anywhere.
I would recommend, because I remember you mentioning it was a nightmare for search engine optimization, Stormchasers Podcast, the full thing.
So yeah, well, weirdly enough, on the audio versions, if you type in Stormchasers, it comes up. But on the video, that's what I was about to mention. If you go to YouTube, where we have our animated version, which I have a lot of fun with, I really love the animated form. Type in Stormchasers Podcast. Otherwise, you're going to get so many people chasing after tornadoes. It's going to be so weird.
Is there any actual storm chasing in the show? Is that I feel like I'm exposing myself as not a true fan.
No, it's all right. In our latest episode that just released yesterday, it's shown that the Stormchasers are a group of people who are dedicated to understanding what the Great Storm is. And the Great Storm is the Great Storm is this magical.
I'm being rated as we speak.
Yeah. Hey.
Hey everybody.
Yeah. The great. Yeah. Hello. The Great Storm is the Great Lily Storm. Is a magical storm that circles the archipelago, which is it's an archipelago. And it's huge and magical and super dangerous. And it's been there for years, like hundreds, thousands of years. That's just never gonna stop. Or rather, it has never stopped. And the Stormchasers are trying to understand what the hell it is.
Right.
It's this collection of wizards who are trying to figure out what it is. I named that episode Title Drop because it's the first time that the Stormchasers is actually said. And so, so that's where the storm chasing comes in. But it also works because it's about a group of people who are adventuring and, having a lot of fun, finding, conflict and kind of being embroiled in something that's way over their heads.
Yeah.
And so, but also with a lot of intent, especially with Dodds, who wants that kind of adventure. And so he is also, and they all are proverbially chasing the storm. And so I feel like it works on a couple levels at least.
Yeah. I guess, like the man said, look up Stormchasers Podcast on YouTube. I should have a link. I'm unprepared and I feel bad about it. But Stormchasers on Spotify and wherever you get your podcasts, and Stormchasers Podcasts on YouTube. I got to say thanks for coming on. It was awesome. Well, because you were in chat for the Dallas episode, and it was awesome to sort of connect with you there. So thanks a lot for coming on. You've been amazing.
Thank you so much for having me. This was a lot of fun.
Yeah, of course.